Hi, everybody. Tony, thank you for that amazing introduction. And yes, I do count you as a friend. It's one of those rare things in business when you can have a partner or a colleague or a sponsor, and then ultimately it ends up into a friendship. So thank you for that. My name is Maria. I am so thrilled and honored to be here today to introduce this incredible panel of powerhouse women entrepreneurs. And I want to say a special thank you to Vicki. Vicki was just recently with us at our National Mompreneurs Conference and wowed our room of 400 mompreneurs just on everything that is happening with SheEO. So thank you for that. It's quite an honor. So my job today is to really help to explain where customers come from. And one of the things that, I was doing my research, doing my homework, and one of the things that really astounds me is that a lot of people look for customers, but don't actually know who their customers are. So before we can even talk about where to find them, we need to talk about how you know who they are. What I'd like to start off with, though, is to have each of you introduce yourselves. What is your business? When did it first start? And what's your mission? So let's start with Marnie.
Okay. I'm Marnie Consky, Chief Anti-Chafing Crusader at Thigh Society. We make anti-chafing underwear that prevents inner thigh chafing. So I started the company almost 9 years ago, actually, and it was my side hustle for about 7.5 years. I've only been on it full-time for the last 1.5 years. And I came up with the product because I could not find a long leg underwear that was lightweight and moisture wicking and not shapewear and not men's long underwear that I could wear underneath skirts and dresses in the summertime when my legs rubbed together. And it was something I was really ashamed of at first, like, am I overweight? What's going on here? Why are my thighs rubbing together? And I started talking to a bunch of other women, and it seems like this was a really big problem for a lot of women, and that it actually had nothing to do with weight. It actually has to do with anatomy and sweating, which is a totally natural function of the human body, and that's life. So I set out to find a short. I did not plan on being in the underwear business, full disclosure, but because I couldn't find anything on the market, I was forced to develop a product myself. I'm sure we'll get into some of the finding your customer bits later on. But my mission is to help women feel comfortable, confident, and love their bodies at any shape and size.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I love it. So if you haven't checked out the website, actually, it's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Huda.
Hi, my name is Huda. I'm the founder and CEO of .health. We build a real-time health data platform. And essentially what that means is for personal health information to move around, today, believe it or not, it moves around using fax machines and UPS couriers. And what we do is build digital pipelines between hospital networks, clinical networks, pharmacy networks, and we bring it all down to the individual, so to you. And our mission is to increase access to all of your own health information. If you think about how the financial world works, VisaNet powers about 6.25 million transactions every single hour because we're transacting money all the time. If you compare that to the amount of health data that needs to be transferred that isn't today, that's like 10 million transactions an hour. That's more than the transactions that we do on Visa. And we continue to do them using a broken paper system. And it's really a life or death situation. I mean, if you don't have the correct results for a person's health at the right time, it could potentially be fatal. We started a year ago, actually. So we're a year old as of Feb 27th. And it started because I was helping one customer find all of his information. He'd been diagnosed with cancer, and he had no idea what was going on. He wasn't from a health background, and he was wondering what was up. He was going to see his oncologist. He was going through chemotherapy, and he would get these little pieces of paper, and that's all he would get. He had no idea how he compared to other people going through the same situation as him because the data wasn't accessible. And it started from there. I quit a cushy job to start the company. And to date, we've done over 350,000 transactions across 250 different health institutions. And we serve customers in Ontario, BC, and Alberta today. And we'll be coast to coast in Canada, ideally next year.
It's amazing. Amazing. 1 year. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Can you follow that?
Go ahead, Kim.
Hi everyone, my name is Kim. I'm the co-founder and CEO of my company called UnCo, and kind of how my story started was actually my second year of university when I was supposed to be studying. I came across this YouTube video, and it was about sweatshop fires happening in Bangladesh, and after watching that video, it really sparked something inside to do more research about the fashion industry and all the things I was learning that, consumers consume nearly 80 billion new pieces of clothing each year, 10.5 million tons of textile waste ending up in our landfills. And just a little bit about me, I'm actually adopted from China, so growing up, I've always had this sense of wanting to do something more and contribute back, and something I thought was so powerful was that consumers can actually vote with their dollar for social impact. So that's kind of how I walked into the world of entrepreneurship, and I started my first business there, a t-shirt company. Long story short, ran that for about 2 years, and then I kind of had this epiphany last summer where I was like, hey, I thought the problem was that people didn't know where their clothes were coming from, when I actually found out, the problem was how much we consume as a society. So then that's when I closed that business down and started UnCo, which our mission is to, change the way how people consume and show how less can be more. And the way we do that is actually we build small capsule wardrobes for women, and we work with the best independent brands and designers in North America to curate those pieces. So we've been around for just a little bit under a year, and to date we have about 27 brands that work with us between the States and Canada. And then also as well, we just opened our first showroom here in Toronto, Adelaide and Portland area. So.
Congratulations. It's amazing. What I love about all three of you is the diversity of businesses and business ideas that actually completely propel your companies. And your customers are all different. So what's going to be really interesting is, I'm going to ask questions about finding our ideal clients and how we know who that person is. And because you all serve in such vast markets, it'll be really interesting, I think, to hear your thoughts on how you find them. So, Huda, I'd like to start with you actually. Being from the health sector, I found the whole concept, it's astounding. Simple but genius is kind of, I remember someone saying that about CEO. And to me, with .health, I've gone through cancer. I've gone through all of that. And so I know that story you just said. I had a binder with all my stuff thrown inside, and you never really know what's happening. So let's talk about how you know who your customer is, because I'm sure it's not just people with afflictions. Like, tell me, how do you know who they are? Do you use an avatar?
I'm laughing because you said you're from the health sector, and I'm like a total health noob. Like I walk into health conferences or whatever, and they're like, "Who's this girl?" Like she's never. Because I come from the world of fintech, so it's very weird for me to be in the world of health. But what's cool about technology is how similar it is across different industries. So consumers want the same thing across the board. So if we're asking for more data, or we want something like an app to be able to call a ride instead of trying to hail a cab, imagine what that could do for your own health data. And it's something, I say this all the time because the idea is not really new. It should have been done like 40 years ago. And it's a bit sad that it hasn't been done yet, and now we have to do it. But when we started out, we thought, okay, well, who are the people who are dealing with health information the most, or who are transacting it the most? And individual doctors are the ones who will do a lot of this work. They will tell their assistants or clerks to fax over information or send a courier or whatever it is. And so initially we thought, we should make this for doctors. And if you've ever tried selling to doctors, that's like the worst idea ever. Doctors are, it's funny because our country, runs on this 13-payer system, and all doctors are sort of like independent contractors for the hospitals that they work at. And so it's very difficult to sell to a moving target. And when that moving target is a doctor, just forget about it. And so what we ended up doing is figuring out who was using it the most and who was sort of rallying behind it. And our true customer is the individual. And right now we're available in Canadian markets, so at the moment, our customer is the Canadian who is the customer of our own healthcare system. But we have a weird two-sided business. So on one side, .health goes and integrates with large hospital networks and essentially siphons off this data once authenticated by the customer. So we're essentially a two-sided business. And what we need to be careful about is who we're truly serving at the end of the day. And for us, that's always been the individual. So yes, we're going to go partner with the pharmacy, we're going to partner with the hospital network and the clinic, but at the end of the day, the reason we're setting up all of these networks and the reason we're setting up all of these sophisticated and very secure ways of transferring really sensitive information is to enable the individual to navigate this super complex healthcare system where you're expected in a lot of ways to, manage your own healthcare, but you're given no tools to do it.
Absolutely none, which is amazing, and I love that. Really, at the end of the day, you wouldn't necessarily think that something health-based is about the consumer, but the consumer, it's a very fast-paced society. It's simple but brilliant. I love it. Marnie, let's go to you.
So how did I find my customers to start with? When I first started early on, I did put some posts up on some internet forums where I identified women who were interested in fashion or who were talking about challenges with fashion, let's put it that way, and basically went on there as a user and started asking questions about, has anyone found an undergarment that is not shapewear? Does anyone else have this experience of thigh chafing? And I actually got tons and tons of responses and feedback through one particular forum, basically giving me some hope that there probably were not any products that were addressing this need out there, because if there were, I would have heard about it through these daily posts. So I also did some focus groups with some friends and friends of friends, and I would say I did my research on foot. I marched around the city, I went to the Bay, I went to small lingerie boutiques, and I started looking for the type of underwear product that I needed. Like I said, something that was non-shapewear, breathable, lightweight, moisture wicking. And I couldn't find it. And even in my discussions with retailers, smaller women-owned lingerie shops, they all sort of looked at me like, we have been asked for products like this before, but we haven't seen it created. And I thought, how can something so simple not exist? It's not possible. So I continued to scour the internet, went on, Amazon and whatnot, and tried to order everything I can get my hands on that would, help inform this decision to move forward with the business, but also to figure out if there was a customer base for these types of products out there. And with each step that I found, I really realized that there wasn't actually a product out there that was just right. There were a few that were trying to achieve it, but either, they would have flaws in them, like they would ride up or they would roll down, and I did a lot of product sampling, and some of those samples I ordered on Amazon I shared with people that I knew who had a similar thigh chafing problem. I will say too, just as an interesting anecdote, I emailed a shapewear company that rhymes with Anks, and I was like, hey, I have a great idea for this product. I really think you guys can, should get on it. And I got an email response back like, don't say anything more. Our legal team is going to be all over this. Unless you want to completely give up your idea, let's stop this conversation right now. And I think at that moment was also a decision to say, you know what, why give someone else a chance to develop this? Let me see what I can do if there's clearly a need for this. And then as time went on, I made the decision to launch my business online, and I did have a few of those retailers I mentioned earlier who took a chance on me and started carrying Thigh Society in their boutiques. And the business has grown over the last few years, predominantly online. And I did that, I don't want to repeat what we're going to be getting to later on, but for me, I believe from day one that the message I wanted to get across was about body positivity, and we were promoting body positivity long before it became a hashtag on Instagram. I mean, Thigh Society existed before Instagram, I think. So for me, it was really important for me to get the product into the hands of bloggers and people that had wider reach than I did, and to see if they liked the product. And so I literally started compiling a database of bloggers and internet sites and editors at magazines of people who I felt would be inclined to try a product. Maybe they had written about inner thigh chafing before. Maybe they were talking about body positive and body image issues, and essentially would just send them an email and send them product. And that in turn resulted in them saying great things and singing the praises of Thigh Society and getting that exposure to their readers. And I'd say, a lot of Thigh Society's success has grown because of word of mouth. women, once we start opening up to one another, we start to realize we're really not alone. It doesn't just have to do with thigh chafing. I think we're hearing a lot of that in this room. We often, struggle in silence when it comes time to talking about issues we're facing, and as soon as you start opening up, you start to realize that you're not alone, and you're probably not the first and last person to, experience whatever it is you're experiencing. So, yeah.
Completely, and yeah, like you said, this room is a testament, right? So in saying that, would you say, how many ideal customer channels would you say you have with Thigh Society?
Well, I'd say e-commerce is our primary sales channel.
Okay.
So we do, some Facebook ads as far as paid marketing goes, and we segment our audience, so that gives us some intel about who our clients are. I'd say my highest selling, demographic is 45 to 60-year-old women who are on Facebook, which is not what I initially would have expected. And my average customer is a size 14, 16, which is the average size of American women these days. Actually, I think it's closer to 16 nowadays. But we only found that through time. I mean, that's been years of research and data. When I first started, I was really just targeting every woman. Like, hey, do your thighs rub together? Do you ever feel like you're walking across a subway grate and the wind blows up and you're suddenly exposed because, whatever you're wearing underneath is see-through or whatnot? Or you're riding your bike, commuting to work, especially in Toronto, and you're worried about how you're going to dress for the commute because if your skirt flies up, then what? You're in the middle of traffic, all exposed. So I really was just focusing on everyday women living everyday lives, and it's only through the last few years of actually tracking things through Facebook marketing, social media engagement, discussions with some retailers about getting a stronger feel for who our customer is. I think we still have a ton of opportunity to expand our market.
Well, and so I think that's really interesting that you bring that up, because I'd like to go to Kim. You're just coming up to a year, you said, with UnCo. So how do you know who your target customer is? How do you know who the ideal person is that's going to come and understand what you do? Because it's a really unique product offering that you have.
Yeah, and to be completely honest with everyone here too, we're still trying to find out who our customer is, right? And I think people are very multidimensional, and that's evolving over time. But kind of my background is in growth marketing. So kind of the approach I took to finding our customer is really testing, and testing fast. So essentially, Alana did a really good segment about crowdfunding. So that's kind of how we broke into market. Essentially testing some messaging and finding our early adopters who adapt this capsule model. As you were saying, it's a very new model where, buying in bulk and buying less is something really new for people, right? The average woman spends $270 a month on clothing every single month. And I wanted to make sure, too, from the panel that you guys would kind of, walk away with some more tangible actions that I did for my company. And so the way as I said, I kind of approach it is think of kind of innovative ways that are low budget and that you can test fast of who your customer is. So one, crowdfunding 100%. It's super low budget. Get your friends who are talented in videography, get maybe a good DSLR camera and start shooting some photos. But it's one of the easiest ways to, putting your idea out there and seeing who your customers are quickly. Also as well, tapping into the online community. So luckily for me, when I started my business, social media has been a huge channel for us in order to find our customers. So some of the things I did was actually look up hashtags that were relevant to my company. So for instance, capsule wardrobe, looking that up and seeing who the thought leaders are in the space, and then finding them and communicating to them and asking them what they thought of the idea and what kind of feedback they would have for us to basically reach a wider target market. Also as well, Facebook communities and Reddit I found was really useful as well. Asking for feedback or asking, who would be interested to join your wait list. And that's actually a good segue to my next point is copywriting is one of the most important things I've learned over the past year. Going from something like, hey, join our email list to join our wait list has been huge instrumental impact for our business in terms of finding our customer. Just changing that dialogue and how you're communicating to them I found was really, really useful. I think you mentioned it as well too, working with influencers or even other brands. That was huge impact on our business of how we found new customers. So I had maybe 5 assumptions of who our target customer could be, and then I went out and found 5 brands who actually already had access to those customers, and I figured out a way to present value to them and value to us and to their customers in order for me to test out to see if they would be interested in what we're doing. So for example, we just did an International Women's Day giveaway with a company called Women Who Explore. So I had this assumption that maybe outdoorsy people might be interested in capsule wardrobes. One being they have disposable income. Two, they may not be the most fashion-forward people. Three, they probably don't care what they're wearing necessarily. They just want to look good and feel good for their workday. So from that collaboration, we were able to acquire nearly 400 people from our waitlist in literally 3 days. So doing collaborations like that and testing those assumptions as fast as you can is probably the best way of figuring out who your customer is and kind of just being adaptable as you go. So.
That's perfect. Well, and before I go on to the next question, I want to just quickly weigh in and give the advice that we found with mompreneurs, because I think what we forget a lot of times is that people are going and looking for you and your business, whether you realize it or not. So one of the things we really make sure to do is we're very, very strategic with our keyword searches. So we work with a marketing team to make sure that words like moms in business, women entrepreneurs, mompreneurs, it's not a term that all entrepreneurs want to use. So we don't speak to all women entrepreneurs. We speak to a very select demographic. And so using a marketing strategy and really being focused on keywords that will matter to the people that will find our group useful is super important. So I wanted to make sure to share that. Now, one of the things we talk about is finding customers, but let's talk about how do you actually work with the ones that you have to keep them top of mind. Once you've gotten them all through your funnel, how do you keep up to date with them while still marketing for new customers? Do you want to take that first, Huda?
Yeah, it's a lot of products or consumer products will cater to a lot of different things. So a lot of what .health does is we're a really simple and straightforward product, and we pay really close attention to what customers are asking for. So when we started with people looking to access their own chemotherapy data specifically. So we had this huge foothold in the cancer patient market. But then we started to notice that other people who were having high interactions with the healthcare system were things like first-time pregnant mothers. And they were going and they were seeing their OBs, or they were going in for different types of blood work. And we started realizing that they had slightly different, like we could serve them with a lot of the same operational workflow of, okay, we'll go get your information for you. But when you have, at the end of a pregnancy, usually you have a kid, and the kid needs their health records managed too. And that was something that we were like, oh, whoa, we didn't even think that this was like a 2-for-1 deal on this one customer. Because at the end of it, the mothers would be like, well, where's my baby's record? I need to manage their immunization scheduling. And we're like, oh, well, that's something that's a slight tweak to what we're already doing and something that we can very easily lend. And then when you go a step further, we had pregnant women who had kids who were older and who were going to camp. And in July, so just a couple months after we'd launched, we had a lot of parents write in and say, well, my kid's going to camp and I need to be able to prove that they've been immunized. And I don't have kids, so I was like, I have no idea that this would even be a problem. But we had like very specific feedback. Like some parents were like, I'm applying to so many camps, I just need like an autofill. Like, can you build me an autofill for my kid's immunization? And I think it's interesting. You start to understand what people are actually trying to do, and then do the best as an entrepreneur and as the product designer to actually give them something that will be that level of useful. So we found it really helpful to keep in very close contact. All of our customers have my cell phone number, and they use it, and they will get in touch with me if they need to at all hours of the day. And I think that's important because to trust someone with your health information is literally like the most important piece of information that you have to give away. So we take that really seriously, and we keep in super close contact with our customers.
Well, and it sounds like your customers are actually they're building your company with you, which is amazing, because that's what is going to inform you on what is needed so you stay top of mind, top of trend.
This entire disintermediation of healthcare will only happen with the rallying of the consumer. So the more we can get them involved, the better it is. The last thing I want is for us to be this like high and mighty, we sit up here and you're down there, is the complete opposite. We're trying to turn it on its head.
That's so cool. Yeah. So Marnie, talk to me a little bit about, you've got a very specific product. Do you follow the model where you invite new customers, discounts and all of that kind of stuff? How do you bring in new people but still take care of the ones who have been with you?
So it's a really good question. Also, since I'll point out that I have currently 3 products right now, and I started with one product that I had literally for sale for 4 years. And whenever I went to speak with people, they were always great to suggest, are you going to come up with tank tops, or why don't you do this material instead, or why don't you come up with this style? And people are always very keen to suggest, which is wonderful, but when you're in a product-based business, no matter what industry, carrying inventory before you know exactly what's going to sell and when can be a really big financial burden. And so for me over the years, I've managed to grow the business, I think very cautiously and carefully by not introducing, a zillion SKUs, maybe at the expense of some customers who, are asking me over the years, can you come up with something longer? Can you do this? But I've been very strategic and slow in building out my product base. So I just wanted to stick that in as a comment, because I think when we think about how to sell to new customers or how to sell to existing customers, immediately a lot of people rush to introduce new products, but that's not always feasible for the business owner. So over the years, I've really focused on building out a strong social media community where people would come to Thigh Society's social pages to get inspired and become more body confident. Because at the end of the day, we are selling a solution to a problem, but the things that make my day are when I get customer emails who are, telling me in so many words, and you can read them all in our reviews, you changed my life. I didn't think I could wear this skirt or this dress anymore. Or, I found a new use for this product. They help my tights stay up because my tights always roll down in the winter. So we've been able to incorporate feedback from our customers to push that back in the form of newsletters, for example. So we do use newsletters to promote not necessarily sales. I'll just touch on that for a minute. Thigh Society is not a high discount brand. That's a strategic decision on my part as the business owner. It's very high quality, great fabric. We do have about 4 promotions per year, but I didn't want to become the type of brand where you wait for a promotion, where you know that every 2 weeks, and I'm sure we all have brands in our head where we know, okay, I really like the sweater, but I know it's going to be on sale for 40% off in 2 days, and we wait. So I decided not to do that. But by getting information from our customers about different uses for the product, we've been able to promote Thigh Society throughout the whole entire year. So most often people think of it as a summer product, but it has uses for warmth, as an extra layer if you're walking in the cold or doing sports like skiing and whatnot. So that's been a big channel for us. We've also done some campaigns. We've worked with some amazing body positive sheroes here in Toronto called the Succulent Six. They actually just launched a new CBC web series. Check it out. It's 30 minutes in total. It's fabulous, or maybe it's an hour in total. But we did a campaign with them about, sort of dispelling the myths on thigh chafing and having real women just sit there and talk about all the, synonyms we use to describe what thigh chafing is. And women of all sizes, just talking about this as a natural, normal problem. And so we were able to push some of that content out. And I worked with them on a pretty, low budget to try to get some videos out there that we could share to not only gain new customers, but to continue to engage with our current customer base. So I think it's an ongoing dialogue. Again, because I don't have so many products at this point, for me, the real motivation on social media is to keep promoting body positivity, because that really, at the end of the day, is at the core of our mission, no matter what products we're selling.
Well, and to close the panel, really, essentially what we're talking about is our marketing and our communication with your ideal client. So something to keep in mind for everybody is also putting yourselves in a position of expertise. Having these 3 ladies up here on a panel, being able to share the information that you've learned with marketing, with finding who your ideal clients are. When you can do that in your own business and position yourself as an expert in your particular space, you're actually finding clients whether you realize it or not. Someone's going to relate with what you're saying and doing and think, you know what, I'm going to go to her website. I'm going to check out. I'm going to subscribe to that e-newsletter, because you're being real, and that's the authenticity that people look for. So before we close the panel, any last words, Kim, on finding those people and loving them hard? How do you continue to do that?
Do things that don't scale. So, find your early customers and treat them like gold, and kind of what Huda said too, like all of our designers have my personal number. We actually had a party last night. Most of them showed up last night as well with us. So, really engaging with your customer and also making them feel special, especially at the early stages when you're first finding out who is your customer. You can do things like sending them letters or asking them to have a phone call to learn more about what they want. So, yeah.
I was going to add one more thing, if I can sneak it in. I would say also, just to that point, is do something really, really well, whether it's a product or a service, and be that solution for your customer, and do it really, really well, and you will gain that customer for life.
That was perfect. Ladies, thank you so much for offering your insights and advice. It was an honor today.